Welcome in to the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast, your daily scoop on all things Duke Blue Devils athletics related. My name is Hugh Strain, your daily host and beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. Today, as well as every Friday, we have our weekly Duke Blue Devils recruiting update going on for you, joined by SI recruiting insider Max Dorsey, getting you everything the latest on Duke recruiting. Today is going to be a football-focused show, so we won't waste any time. We're going to bring in Max Dorsey, SI recruiting insider. Max, good to have you on the show.
Thanks, you. Happy to be here.
So we'll kind of kick it off here with the obvious. Darian Mensah, star quarterback, has entered the transfer portal, leaving Duke in a whirlwind and a spiral to find his replacement. The lawsuit was officially settled on January 27th. Duke elects to settle outside of court altogether with its former star quarterback. Mensah is heading to Miami. And Max, this obviously sets Duke back quite a bit. Give us anything on what they have for potential replacements for Mensah next season.
Yeah, first of all, we talked about this a lot last week, Hugh. I thought it was interesting that Duke was able to set or ended up deciding to settle this outside of court after obviously launching the initial legal battle against Mensah. Obviously, we both mentioned last week that this was going to be very hard for Duke to ultimately retain Mensah. So they went the route of settling this with him on a personal side. Obviously, now Mensah's out of the program. And like you said, it's a huge blow for the Blue Devils. In terms of replacements, Walker Eggett was signed earlier this week. He's a San Jose State quarterback transfer. And I think he's likely going to be the starter. This is a guy that's thrown for over 5,500 yards in the last two seasons across 23 starts. He has a turnover problem. He's thrown 19 interceptions in as many starts. But he's an experienced player. He's a veteran player. I think they brought him in likely to be the starter. There might be a competition with Ari Patu, who is another quarterback transfer they brought in from North Alabama earlier in the transfer portal cycle, as well as some younger guys on the roster like Dan Manhan and Lawrence Gardner. But I really do believe that Eggett was brought in to be the starter. He's, like I said, a veteran player. And again, there's no replacing Mensah. I think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country. But in terms of the position that Duke was put in over the last 2 weeks and their back was basically against the wall, I think Eggett's going to be a very solid replacement.
So you mentioned the other guys on the roster. You know, as a Duke fan, from a fan standpoint, should they be in the mindset that Eggett will be this team starting quarterback, or is there a battle they should follow? Obviously, there's always going to be a little bit of a battle from the program that just announces it, but do Duke fans expect Walker Eggett from San Jose State is the team starter?
No, I don't think by any means, especially heading into spring ball, there's going to be a definitive starter. I think it will be an open competition. I know that fans were excited about Manhan when he was signed, and I think he's very much in the mix here. Patu is a guy that was at Stanford for 3 years, and then North Alabama at 2 years, so he's seen a lot of football as well. Injuries have kind of derailed his career. He was expected to be the North Alabama starter in 2024, but missed the entire season, and then only ended up starting 5 games in 2025. So I think this is going to be an open competition. But as I said earlier, I do believe that the staff brought in Eggett with the hopes that this would be their starter. Now, I don't think they've decided that by any means, but I do believe the hope is that Eggett will be the starter next season.
So obviously, we just mentioned how losing Darian Mensah is such a massive blow. CBS Sports just released a list of their top players in the country who forgoed the NFL draft and returned to college football for 2026. Darian Mensah was number 2 on that list. This is a Duke football program that's coming off an ACC championship in 2025. It's first since 1989. How does losing Mensah in the grand scheme of things, forget the legal battle, forget how it happened, forget the awful timing, how does this, in the grand scheme of things, set the team back from a team that probably had college football playoff aspirations heading into 2026?
Yeah, I think if you ask people outside of Duke and who are not Duke fans and maybe not even ACC fans, just your normal college football fan, I don't think they would understand just how good Mensah was in 2025. He led the ACC in passing. I believe he was second in the country, especially after that shootout in the Sun Bowl in passing total. And this is a guy that was just efficient. Obviously, he has the running ability. I said this last week. I think he was legitimately a Heisman Trophy contender heading into 2026. So for Duke not to have a player of that caliber at the quarterback position, like you said, after a year where they went to an ACC championship and we're looking to build on that success and maybe even make a push for the college football playoff, it's a huge blow for the program. And there's there's no, what sucks the most for Duke fans is there's nothing they could have done about it. It's just, the lawlessness of NIL and the way the college football works right now. But this is certainly going to set the team back because after the season wrapped up and Mensa announced, that's like another part of this. Mensa announced his return. So like there was a 2-week window during the transfer portal while it was open where everyone inside the building thought Duke or that Mensa was coming back. Every Duke fan thought Mensa was coming back. And you're kind of building your roster through the transfer portal with the idea that Mensa will be back in 2026. So not only does it suck not to have him back next year, but they also probably missed on not only quarterbacks, but other pieces that they might have wanted to brought in to help, their new quarterback and whatever the new quarterback situation is going to be. So overall, it's a detrimental hit to Duke's season.
Yeah, you mentioned how Duke expected him back, and we're not going to get into the whole legal battle and the NIL deal. That's a whole conversation for another day, Max. I could sit here for hours and talk to you about that and the whole lawlessness of college football. We're going to head to another portal move by a former Duke Blue Devil that seemingly flew under the radar because of this whole Mensa case and how it kind of took college football by storm because it really displayed where the state of college athletics currently is. But the move really flew under the radar. It's Duke's top receiver, Cooper Barkate, who entered the portal and also committed to Miami the same day that Darian Mensah did. So a couple days after Mensah hits the portal, Cooper Barkate does. He was Duke's leading receiver. He was second in the ACC in receiving yards. He was second in the ACC in receiving touchdowns, was Duke's first 1,000-yard receiver since Jamison Crowder in 2014. If anything, if things couldn't get worse for Duke, Max, they lose their top receiver as well as their top quarterback. And mind you, Cooper Barkate had also publicly announced he had re-signed with the Blue Devils. It feels like it's out of a cartoon. Who the heck knows what's going on? But, with Barkate now out of the program, I think it flew under the radar for a lot of fans. Max, give us, who's coming in for the Blue Devils and who can possibly fill that void.
Yeah, the Miami Blue Devils with Barkate and Mensa both going there. It's a crazy situation. And like you said, I think it is a move that not a lot of people are realizing just how big of an impact that's also going to have on Duke's offense next season, because you put it perfectly. This is a guy that was the most productive receiver on the team. He's one of the most productive receivers in the ACC. So not only are you losing a guy that was one of the most electric quarterbacks in the country, but you're also losing his number one wide receiver. In terms of who they're bringing in, they brought in Javin Nicholas, who was a Charlotte receiver transfer. He had 740 yards and 5 touchdowns in 2025. He, I believe, was previously at LSU before that, and was more of a special teamer, and then really found his footing as a wide receiver for Charlotte. He's an exciting player. He's a bit undersized. This is a guy that you're kind of going to use in the slot, maybe a gadget type of wide receiver. He's not going to be your true X that Barkate was. And the good news for Duke is that they also brought in, and this is going to be shades of last year's transfer portal with Barkate, another Ivy League wide receiver in Jared Richardson from Penn. Richardson had a highly productive season, over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns at Penn. Again, I don't know what I don't know what the expectations were for Barkate. I don't think many people thought he was going to be as productive at Duke as he was in 2025. And I think it's kind of the same gray area for Richardson. How is this guy's game going to translate from the Ivy League level to the ACC level? But he's a talented receiver. He was productive. And I think he's really going to be the guy that Walker Eget or whoever the Duke quarterback is in 2026 is going to lean on.
Yeah, I mean, at least from a standpoint of mine, I didn't even think Cooper Barkate was going to be the wide receiver one on the Blue Devils. They brought in Andrell Anthony, who was formerly at Michigan and Oklahoma. I thought he was going to be the wide receiver one, and then it turned out to be Barkate. So now Richardson, they're bringing in from Ivy League as well. Max, what is his game like? And what can Duke fans expect from him in terms of a production standpoint, not just purely from the box score, but what he excels at?
Yeah, I think this is a guy that's not your best athlete. I want to get that off the rip. He's not going to, break away from cornerbacks or anything like that. But what excites me about him is he's a refined player. He's highly skilled. His skill sets, what you would expect from a power forward wide receiver. He can create separation. He has good size, strong hands at the catch point, really everything you want in a X wide receiver. And I think he's going to bring that to the table. I think he's a crafty route runner. He understands how to create separation in both man and zone. So this is a player that I'm excited about to see in the Duke offense. I think, the hiccup here is if this was a receiver that Mensa was throwing to, I think the connection would be there. But again, now you have the question about, is the quarterback going to be able to get him the ball in the offense? So I think that's, a minor question mark. But I am excited about Richardson, and I think he's a guy that can really produce in 2026 for Duke.
I mean, if you showed a Duke fan their roster 2 weeks ago and their roster now, it not full roster, but from an offensive skill position standpoint, it would seem like you're joking with them. And for obvious reasons, this case almost seems like a dream. And again, Duke fans, as well as the Duke program just 2 weeks ago, were thinking this team had genuine college football playoff aspirations in 2026, with probably the best quarterback in the ACC coming back, maybe a top 3 receiver in the conference coming back. And sure, it was a 9-5 season. A lot of things could have gotten better, but this is a Duke team that had to build, or at least wanted to build, on a 9-5 season where it won the conference title and did what it had to do. As a Duke fan, tell us if we can still expect, something special from this team, or if we should kind of be more conservative with our hopes for the next season, and be brutally honest with us.
Yeah, it's a tough question, and it really just comes down to, the quarterback, because I think part of the magic of this Duke season was what Mensa was able to accomplish. Obviously a terrific player. And as much as we say that football is a team sport, and as much as, it's all 11 guys on the field make a difference, a team can only go as far as their quarterback. And you saw that, I think, in the college football playoff this year. The best quarterback in the country, the Heisman winner, won the national championship. And obviously that Indiana team had a lot of support around him. But, if you want to make the college football playoff, you're going to have a guy at the quarterback position. So if they can get that type of play, obviously it doesn't need to be as good as Mensa was last year. I think the ACC's obviously, a weaker-ish conference in terms of the Power 4 conferences. But if you can have a guy that can be efficient and deliver the football on time, in rhythm, and just keep the offense ahead of the sticks, then I think Duke could have a good season. Now, is this a college football playoff team? Probably not by any means. But is this a team that could compete for a spot in the ACC championship again? If the quarterback play is up to par, certainly.
Wild times going on in college football. The Duke program, the latest victim of the NIL era. Time will tell if anything's going to change. We'll move off from the current Duke program. And Max, you've written some pretty awesome stories on future Duke recruits that they've had in the building, offers to give us a little bit of an update on some 2027 recruits for the Duke football program.
Yeah, so the 2026 cycle is obviously starting to wind down here. Early National Signing Day has come and gone. And as the offseason continues, the 2027 cycle has really come to the forefront of the sport. That's what most coaching staffs are focusing on right now. And Duke has sent out a flurry of offers. And speaking about the quarterback position, they've been targeting a lot of 2027 quarterbacks. Just in the last week, they've offered Jake Narrott, who's the number 25 overall quarterback in the class. From Illinois. They've offered William Jackson, the number 41 overall quarterback in the class from Orlando, Florida. Davin Davidson, who's one of the fastest rising quarterbacks in the class. I believe he's earned over 16 Division I offers in just the last 2 weeks. That's a really, really high rising prospect that a lot of programs are excited about. Duke offered him, I believe, on the 24th of January. He's currently ranked as the number 31 overall quarterback in the class, but I think he's going to rise a lot higher than that. And they've even offered a couple of 2028 signal callers as well. So Manny Diaz and his staff are really kind of hitting the recruiting trail hard here. And with the lack of depth that they had under Mensa when this situation went down, I believe they're making it a priority right now to really ensure that they're set at that position for the foreseeable future, so that they're not put in a situation like they were this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, Duke stood its ground with Mensa, filed the lawsuit, were praised by, coach and staffers. But with the way the NIL era currently is, it's literally completely unpredictable. All Mensa had to do was say never mind to his contract. Basically, that contract was set to expire on December 31st, 2026. Mensa literally just said never mind, and he was gone. And the NCAA is super passionate about not referring to its athletes as employees. So it's a very difficult case for Duke to win. Max, I know you've been following it. I've been writing about it for the past week. From a fan standpoint, just where the heck is college football going, and what can we expect from a recruiting trail in the future with, as you mentioned, the lawlessness of college football?
Yeah, when I was growing up, I remember that the NCAA was this end-all, be-all governing body that made all the decisions, whether fans liked it or not. But they had complete and total power over college sports. And now with the NIL era, that power is seriously diminished. they're really kind of just a body that stands there and really does nothing. They're facing lawsuits year in and year out over eligibility, and they're losing those battles 10 times out of 10. So when your governor, what's supposed to be the governing body of the sport, can't govern, you're going to have situations like Mensa and what just happened with Duke. Because if a quarterback, like you say, can just decide not to honor a contract and there's no repercussion for that whatsoever, then obviously that's just going to start to become a trend in the sport. So there needs to be, whether it could be Congress, it could be a new governing body put in place, but there definitely needs to be some major overhaul in terms of who is in charge of the sport, what rules are in place, and how you get every team, not just the Power 4 teams, not just the SEC teams, not just the Big Ten teams, but every team in the country to follow those rules in unison. So that's the challenge. Obviously, a lot of people smarter than me are dealing with that right now because I certainly don't have the answers. But it's I think what hurts the most about this situation is that it hurts the fans. Like, it's not, obviously the teams are getting hurt, but really the fans are the ones that are losing out on getting to root for Mensa for another year, right? Like, this was a guy that Duke fans fell in love with. He was awesome. They brought him in from Tulane. Again, we've talked about it ad nauseum, but one of the best quarterbacks in the country this season. And obviously those are the type of guys back in, 2014 where you'd be like, oh my God, we have him for another year in 2026, or 2015, if we're following that scenario. But now, you can only really know a player for 1 year, and then the future is so uncertain.
And that's kind of the state we live in from a fan standpoint. Max, we thank you so much for being on the show. That was on SI Recruiting Insider Max Dorsey. My name is Hugh Strain. We thank you so much for tuning in to the Duke Blue Devils Insider Podcast every single day for your daily scoop on everything Duke athletics news. That was our weekly recruiting update. Once again, my name is Hugh Strain, your daily host, as well as Duke beat writer at Duke Blue Devils on SI. We thank you so much for joining. As always, make sure to check us out at si.com/college/Duke for everything up to date on Duke Blue Devils news. We'll see you tomorrow.